story from, it's a true story, or so we are told. And it's from a country called Suriname, which is at the edge of the rainforest. And tradition says that what would happen is that the people would sit around the fire at night and they would tell stories. And one of their favorite was a story called about a little boy named Jacona. And Jacona, which if we translated it into an everyday name in our culture, would be Jack. And there are lots of things called Jack tales, and that's really what this one is. So you've probably heard of Jack and Jill, and you've probably heard Jack used in other stories. Even Hansel of Hansel and Gretel really is the name Jack. So this is a Jack tale, and I'm delighted to tell it to you. And I'm particularly delighted to tell it to you. Here's where the book is from. The author's name is Nomi Lichtfeld, and she was born in the Netherlands, but her parents were from Suriname. So she actually heard the story from them. And the way you tell this story was, the one who got to tell it the fastest was the winner. And when we start to tell it together, you'll understand what I'm talking about. This is definitely a story that builds upon another piece of it. So you'll recognize this, and perhaps we'll do another one in the same model another time. So I've told this story, as you can see before me. Looks kind of weird, huh? With recyclable items. And I do it particularly for the rainforest, which is often in trouble and in jeopardy of being destroyed. Why does that matter? Well, for one reason, the rainforest is beautiful, and it is a culture in itself, and things live in the rainforest that do not live anywhere else. What do we get from the rainforest? You got it. We get not only beautiful things, we get chocolate. We also get medicines that can be found nowhere else. So we need to preserve the rainforest. It goes, in fact, that the rainforest used to come all the way up through the United States, which is where I live. It was even a piece in my neighborhood, but it slowly and surely disappeared. So recycling is important to maintain these beautiful forests, not necessarily there, but here as well. So what I have done is I've created this show out of objects we drink from. Before we got wiser, which is what we are now, and hopefully get even wiser, we would throw these out the window or the door or in the regular garbage. But now we are, no commercial, smart. So what do? We recycle them. We either put them in a cart that says recycle. Some people drag them down to the recycling center in their town. In my town, we put them in a regular cart that the city has provided. And every day they're taken away and hopefully used in another way. But this story, which we are going to recycle from the old original tale, is told with recyclable objects. So what you do in order to make one of these puppets is you take a bottle. This one's a pretty tough one, so this would be harder to do what I'm going to show you to do. And you cut it off like that. So you do not have the pourable part. You can save those because they're kind of cool. You could even make glasses out of them, drinking glasses. Then what you're going to do is you're going to put your hand inside. And what that does is it immediately gives your character, put something down there, an arm, a neck, a movement. Now you could just leave it like this, and then you could put a face. You could draw a face on your hand if no one minds. I'm not going to do that today, but because I have made some puppets to tell our story. But think of that. Or here's a good idea, I think. Take a photo of your face, put it right there, and put yourself in the story. Now you'll see the last character we meet in our story is the king. Now, why I love to make kings out of this is because, I won't show you his face, it looks like a crown. Comes with all the prerequisites of crown. So that's one of the characters of our story. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 puppets in this story. And we get to do it all. The other props we're going to use are fun, and they make noise in the rainforest. This is called the rain stick, and it is made out of a log that fell off a tree. Nothing was destroyed in its making. And inside, if you listen very carefully, cactus needles. You could put other things inside, but some people use beans, but I don't like to use food because we need the food. So that is what is in here. And I'm going to use it just for a little background music and for something for one of our characters to be working on. And I'm going to give you some gaps in the story, very brief. You won't even know they're there, for you to help me tell this tale. And if you're ready, I'm going to bring up one more prop. He's going to introduce the story. Pretty seedy character, don't you think? Sometimes pumpkins worry that when Halloween is over, they're useless, but no, not me. We use everything. So would you like to introduce the story? The story, written by or retold by Noni Lichtfeld, is called I Lost My Arrow in the Kankan Tree. And it goes like this. Once there was a little boy named Jacona. Jacona lived with his mom and his dad, his 13 brothers and sisters, in the middle of a little village called Surinamis. Surinamis was right in the edge of the rainforest, so beautiful. But there was trouble in the rainforest, I am sad to report, for in the rainforest, things were not good. Some of the animals were becoming extinct, and those were the creatures that our family of Jaconas needed to live, to eat. And that's the way we lived in the forest. As a matter of fact, every day, Jacona's father and his brothers would go out into the fields, and they would hunt for dinner. No stores nearby for Jacona and his family, no. Only what was available to them. Of course, they had vegetables that Mom and the sisters gathered. 13 kids in the family of Jacona. Jacona was the oldest. So one day, Jacona went to his mom and he said, Mom, she said, Jacona, my beloved, what is it? He said, I would like to go into the city and get myself a job. Jacona, you're 13 years old. What could you possibly do that would take care of our whole family? We're having trouble out here in the rainforest. And Jacona said, I don't know, but I'm going to help because I think it is important that I do that. And with that, Jacona's mom said, stop. I can't give you much to take along, hardly even a bag of things to eat, but I can make sure that you have one arrow for your bow. And with that, she gave him her love, her best blessing, and off Jacona went into the forest to get himself to the city, to get himself a job. Well, Jacona walked for quite a ways. Then he saw something truly magic flying through the air. It was a bird. Whoosh! Jacona got so excited that he took his bow and he took his arrow and he shot at that bird because he could see that it was going to be dinner. Whoosh! Oh, no. Jacona missed and the bird was gone. Now, Jacona was very angry with the tree that the bird seemed to be stuck in. So he went over to the tree and he said, I shot my arrow in the Kankan tree and you took it, said Jacona to the tree. The tree felt very badly, or at least must have, because what did the tree do but gave the bird back to Jacona, ready at his feet. Oh, Jacona was so thankful. He said thank you to the tree, took the bird, flung it over his shoulder, and went to the city to get himself a job. You got it. And off he went, carrying the bird over his shoulder, thinking about dinner, what was going to make with that bird. He was going to fry it. He was going to saute it. And then he was going to share it with his family right after he got himself a job. But then Jacona heard somebody complaining. Now, I know that you out there, you never complain. So let me explain to you what she was complaining about. It was Grandma C. She was complaining about what she had to eat. Pumpkins, pumpkins, pumpkins. All I have to eat are pumpkins. Now, when she saw Jacona coming down the road with a bird over his shoulder, oh, she got so excited. She said, excuse me, young man, but where did you get that bird? So Jacona told her. He said, well, that's simple. You see, I shot my arrow in the Kankan tree, and the Kankan tree gave me this bird. I would love to have that bird. All I've had is pumpkins. I've had them squashed and fried and sauteed. I've eaten the seeds. Oh, I am bored, bored, bored with pumpkins. What could Jacona do? He gave Grandma C that bird, and she took it. And now what was Jacona left with? Nothing, or so it would seem, except Grandma C went into her house and she came back with one beautiful pumpkin, and she gave it to Jacona. Well, of course, he said, thank you so much. And he took that pumpkin, flung it over his shoulder, and went to the city to get a job. And as he was walking, he was thinking about that pumpkin. What was he going to do with the pumpkin? He was going to make pies. He was going to open a pie shop in the city. He was going to sell all those pies and their seeds. And then he would have enough money to take care of his family. Well, that would have been great, except for one thing. He ran into a carpenter who'd been working so hard. He'd been banging and sawing. He had forgotten to have lunch. And then when he saw Jacona coming down the road with that pumpkin, he realized how very hungry he was. He said, that looks good, young man. Where did you get that pumpkin? Well, Jacona told him. Well, that's easy. You see, I shot my arrow in the Kankan tree, and the Kankan tree gave me a bird. And I gave my bird to Grandma C, and she gave me this pumpkin. Said the carpenter. If only I could have some of that pumpkin. Now, Jacona was a very generous boy, so he gave the whole pumpkin to the carpenter. He even helped him carry it into the house. And then he had nothing. Oh, no, no, no. You must know that by now. There is never nothing. There's always something. So the carpenter gave Jacona a beautiful stick. And he told him that if he listened carefully, he would hear music. Well, Jacona got so excited that he decided, after he had flung the stick over his shoulder, that he was going to become a musician. When he got to the city, he would sit on the corner and he would play beautiful music, and people would help support him and his family. And so he was very excited as he walked toward the city to get himself a job. Now, in the middle of all of that, of course, there came a huge herd of cows and bulls. And all they were saying was, ooh, snort, snort, snort. Those were the bulls. Jacona could hardly see where it's going. And of course, neither could the cow tender, who was running wildly after those cows and those bulls. He didn't have a way to control them. And then he saw Jacona. He said, Jacona, Jacona, what do you have there? And Jacona said, why? I have me a beautiful stick. Oh, if I had that stick, I could control all this cattle. Well, I think you've got the gist of it. Well, the cow tender didn't want to take the stick from Jacona, so he asked him where he could get one. And Jacona said, that's easy. You see, I shot my arrow in the Kankan tree, and the Kankan tree gave me a bird. And I gave my bird to Grandma C. She gave me a pumpkin. And I gave my pumpkin to the carpenter, who gave me this stick. Oh, you really need it. So he gave the cow tender the stick. And the cow tender took it. He got all his cattle lined up in a row and ready to go to market. But not so Jacona. Jacona had nothing, or so it appeared. But of course, that cow tender was a sharer. And you know what he gave him? a cow. Well, Jacona took that cow and he flung it. No, he didn't. He wouldn't. No, he wouldn't even ride it. They walked together to town. They were almost there, almost there. And then Jacona came to someone working on the roads. Oh, they were trying to make their way into town. It was such a rubble and mess. And that man had been working so very hard, digging away at that hard, hard ground. He could surely use something to drink. And then he dropped Jacona walking down the road with a cow. Woo! And he thought of milk. I would love some milk. Well, Jacona said, happy to oblige you, but you look so very thirsty. So I'm going to give you the whole cow, and then you can quench your thirst and build a road to the city, because that's where I'm going to get me a job. So of course, he gave him the cow. And of course, Jacona now had nothing. For what was the road builder to give Jacona? He couldn't give him a pile of rocks, or maybe he could. But you see, that road builder had been digging so deep and so fine that he found something that was different than all the other rocks. So shiny, so beautiful, that he was going to save him. But he decided that someone as generous and as good as Jacona should share the wealth. So he took that pile of rocks and he gave it to Jacona. Jacona had never seen anything like it. Deep in the woods where he lived, Jacona had no idea that it was gold. So he put it in his pocket, and now he was at the city and he was going to get himself a job. Didn't work out so well. Well, he looked to the left and he looked to the right. He looked up, he looked down, he even looked in the garbage cans looking for something to do in the city to get enough money to take care of his mom and his dad, his whole family. And he found nothing. Poor Jacona. So he decided he'd go see his Royal Majesty the King. Maybe the king could help him. He was the wisest in the land. So off went Jacona with a tiny little bag of pretty rocks. When he got to the door of the castle, he knocked on the door. And out came the king. Kings don't usually answer their own doors, but things were bad in the kingdom. The king had very little. When he saw Jacona, he was pleased for the company. He said, "My dear young man, what brings you here?" "I'm here to get a job, your Royal Majesty the King, if it's all the same to you." "Well, it is all the same to me. You're one of my people, but I don't have any jobs for you." "Oh dear. I need a job to take care of my family. I've got 13 brothers and sisters, a mom and a dad, my grandmas and my grandpas." "Oh, now I could sell you a parcel of land." No, your Majesty, I don't have anything to buy it with. But I tell you what I'll do, because maybe we could just look at them together. They're so pretty, and I've never seen anything like them." So Jacona reached deep inside of his pocket, and he took out these pretty rocks. And the king looked at them and said, "My dear boy, this is gold." "Gold? Gold? What's that?" "Gold is what we use to buy things." "Oh, does that mean I could buy some land from you, your Royal Majesty?" "Why, of course, my boy. And with the money that I get, I can help all my people. And you can have a parcel of land to farm, to take care of your family. But first, I need to know where you got this gold." Oh, Jacona was only too happy to tell him. "So I would appreciate it if you could help him out." "Well, your Majesty, it was quite simple. You see, I shot my arrow in the Kankan tree, and the Kankan tree gave me a bird. And I gave my bird to Grandma C, and she gave me a pumpkin. And I gave my pumpkin to the carpenter, who gave me a stick. And I gave my stick to the cow tender, who gave me a cow. And I gave my cow to the road builder, who gave me these." "Gold, you say?" Oh, that's exactly right. Well, the king wrote out for Chacona something called a deed, which is indeed a good thing to have if you own land. And Jacona took it and he thanked him. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Your Royal Majesty. And off Jacona went to tell his mom. Now he raced through the forest, and as he was racing, he was thinking of all the good things he was going to do, how they were going to take care of their land. And Jacona was so excited. When he raced inside, he said, Mom, Mom, I'm home. And she said, Oh, and I am so glad to see you, my boy. She looked everywhere. She didn't see his bow and arrow. Certainly not. She said, Jacona, I gave you an arrow and a bow. Where are they? Oh, Mom, we won't need them much anymore. Well, how is that? Because I have something better. You do? What is it? Well, he gave his mom that little piece of paper, and she read it quite well. And it told her that they had land to farm. And she said, Jacona, where did you get that? And he told her what everybody here knows, but she doesn't know yet, so I think we have to tell her. Well, it goes like this, Mom. You see, after I said goodbye to you, I wandered down and I shot my arrow in the Kankan tree, and the Kankan tree gave me a bird. And I gave my bird to Grandma C, and she gave me a pumpkin. And I gave my pumpkin to the carpenter, who gave me a stick. And I gave my stick to the cow tender, who gave me a cow. And then I gave my cow to the road builder, who gave me some gold. And then I gave my gold to the king, who gave me this land to farm. Oh, Jacona, such a good and wise use of your resources. And she hugged that boy. And our story goes like this, my friends. Jacona's family took care of that land, and they grew crops until the next generation. And then they took care of their land and their family. And so it went forever and ever to this very day. For we all know you never have nothing. You always have something. And that is the absolute truth. Have a good week, a week of good.